I felt one drop. Oh, that worked. Oh yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and worms. Welcome back to the Edit320 YouTube channel, and today we're doing something quite different from what I normally do, although not something that I haven't teased before. Unlike my usual content dealing with tanks and tank history, today we're going to be talking about firearms, which again is not something completely foreign to this channel. A lot of you may recall that I made a video summer of this past year, end of the summer, going over quickly what was at the time my full gun collection. I have indeed collected a couple of new guns since I made that video, but during that video I made the promise that I was going to go more in depth on each of my individual firearms. Rather than covering all of them in one video on a surface level, I was going to make dedicated videos on each gun. Well, this is that series, and this is episode 1. And this is, of course, if you saw the title of the video and the intro, the Winchester model of 1897 pump action 12 gauge shotgun. This particular one is in 12 gauge. So, the Winchester model of 1897 is an American pump-action or slide-action shotgun developed by John Moses Browning at the Winchester Repeating Arms Company between 1893 and 1897. Although, actually, our story can go even a little bit further back than that. In 1886, the Spencer Gun Company released what is widely considered to be the first ever pump-action or slide-action shotgun with the, well, Spencer's model 1886. The shotgun was a little bit wacky in the sense that it ejected shells out the top and had a weird flippy uppy bit thing on the top. Also, you could not feed shells into the magazine tube without the action being open, unlike pretty much every other shotgun that's been designed since then. You'd open the action, load one, close the action, and then have to rack the action again to get it into the chamber. It was just a little odd. But, I mean, for the first ever slide-action, pump-action shotgun, it worked, and it was decently successful. Successful so much so, in fact, that Winchester soon would ask John Moses Browning, who then worked for Winchester, to develop a competing shotgun design. Not long after, though, the new company that owned the Spencer patent for the shotgun, Bannerman, would go up against Winchester in the court of law, as Bannerman was trying to make the argument that the Spencer slide-action shotgun was patented. Not willing to let a bunch of snobby lawyers get in the way of Winchester and the future of firearms development, Winchester and its own lawyers set to work scouring all of known firearms history for pretty much any design of the past, well, since the inception of the firearm, that may even slightly resemble a pump action or slide action to try to prove to the courts that, hey, the slide action pump action is not a new invention. This tactic seems to have worked as the Winchester Repeating Arms Company won its battle in the court of law. And so the results of all of this legal riffraff eventually ends up in the Winchester model of 1893. No, not the 1897, at least not quite yet. The 1893 came first, although is basically identical to the shotgun that I have on the table with me today. Actually, it's not identical. There were plenty of things changed. I know, Othias, you had a great list on your video of all the different things that they changed between the 1893 and the 1897, but the biggest change is the chambering of smokeless powder. 1886, France releases the Lebel 1886 and basically changes the world of firearms overnight with the invention of smokeless powder. While military rifles would pretty much jump on the smokeless powder bandwagon as soon as possible, shotguns took a little bit more time to catch up. Shotguns were at the time basically relegated to civilian use, so hey, we can wait a little bit before black powder catches up, but eventually it had to catch up. So the original Winchester 1893 shotguns are chambered in black powder, but it proved to be a wildly successful shotgun. The Winchester 1893, this basic design, external hammer, pump action, one action bar. You can't see it on this side, but on the other side you have one action bar, big bolt that slides out the back of the gun. Watch your thumb when you rack that. This design was incredible, especially compared to the Spencer/Bannerman shotguns. This was a massive improvement. John Browning knocked it out of the park yet again. And indeed, although the Spencer Bannerman shotgun does technically beat the Winchester 1897 as, well, the first pump-action shotgun, the Winchester 1893/97 is widely considered to be the first commercially successful pump-action shotgun. Obviously, as I've been alluding to, and as what makes sense, in 1897, the update was finally brought in to switch over from black powder to smokeless powder. The receiver was strengthened, many other components were strengthened, basically to make the shotguns more robust and able to withstand the higher pressures of smokeless powder. Smokeless powder also, of course, being the type of gunpowder that we still shoot in shotguns to this day. And of course, the Winchester 1897 would go on to be an even bigger commercial smash hit than the 1893. All framed up?
Yep.
Woo! Jesus! All right, we're good. Whew, I think all 5 went off too.
Yep.
Gun is empty. Half cock, we're safe. These shotguns were damn near a household item. If you didn't have one, your brother had one. If your brother didn't have one, your dad had one. If your dad didn't have one, your uncle probably had one. And if he didn't have one, your cousins probably did. But if none of those people had one, then your friend probably did. And if your friend didn't have one, then his dad probably did. And if none of those people had one, you at least knew a guy who probably had one. And if he didn't have one, his dog probably did. Point being, it was an incredibly good design and an incredibly robust design that has withstood the test of time. Not just as a design, but then also the individual gun's ability to last. This particular shotgun, in case you're wondering, was manufactured in 1910. Indeed, making this actually the oldest gun that I own, which is really crazy because I own some really old guns. And it's crazy to think that this actually, in terms of actual manufacture date, is the oldest gun that I have because, again, it feels like one of the most modern and normal. This feels like the kind of gun that my dad would have bought in the 1970s and kept in the bed of his pickup truck for all of his life, and then I inherited it from him. But no, this is a gun that was owned by somebody all the way back in the 19-teens. If only these guns could talk. As a quick note, Winchester, upon releasing the 1897, quickly realized that having 2 shotguns that look basically identical, but one is chambered in black powder and one is not, obviously could create some serious hazards. Particularly, I believe Winchester was probably quite worried about do not try this at home types, shoving smokeless powder charges into black powder 1893 shotguns and blowing those receivers to smithereens, which of course, I don't need to tell you, is quite dangerous and you shouldn't try it at home. Initially, Winchester took advantage of a warranty program that basically says if you return an 1893 shotgun to Winchester for repairs, instead of repairing your gun, they would be willing to give you an 1897 free of charge. On the civilian side of things, this shotgun would remain in production all the way until 1957, which is, holy crap, a very long lifespan, in my humble opinion, for production.
All right, are you recording? As long as the shells don't eject right in the camera.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But that would look cool.
Yeah.
Are you recording?
Yep.
All right, going hot. Nice. Oh, well, there's one in the tube, so let's...
There's one in the chamber, too.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant to say. Get back in the tube, you little bitch. So after the civilian side of things, let's talk about the military/martial use of these things. As you can probably guess, these shotguns were indeed quite popular amongst police forces and prison guards and stagecoach guarding, preventing train robberies and things like that, guarding factories. And for that purpose, the traditional shotguns were given a shorter barrel length and marketed directly to police and riot forces. In the original configuration, the Winchester shotguns would have come with a 30-inch barrel, which is a decent bit longer than this. I'll pop up a photo somewhere. The vast majority of civilian configurations and civilian shooters would have had shotguns of that configuration with that barrel length, 28 or 30 inches. However, alternative 20-inch barrel variations were made, and these were commonly dubbed the riot models. According to Matthias from Sea and Arsenal, these models of shotguns did not appear in the catalogs and thus would not have been marketed to the civilian world. These were almost certainly marketed directly to them as, hey, This is not on the menu when you walk through the door, but if you ask politely behind the counter, I'm sure we can make something special for you. In fact, we already have, please buy it. And in addition to all of that, the United States military would find decent interest in these shotguns in the late 1890s and the early 1900s during the Philippine insurrections. These guns were purchased by the United States Army because of its perceived stopping power. Basically, shotguns were seen to be quite effective against the local insurrectionists. Again, Othais and Arsenal goes much deeper into it than I ever could, and I'm not just going to straight rip his video, but that sort of theater is when the US Army gets its taste of not just the military shotgun as a concept, but then also specifically the Winchester 1897 in that role. This knowledge would be kept in the US Army's back pocket for when, of course, war were declared. Nah, I'm not trying to do a see an Arsenal thing, please. Essentially, World War I breaks out, and quite famously, the United States enters the First World War in 1917, later than everyone else, but still with a massive shortage of small arms. The story of the 1903 is quite well known at this point, being essentially all but replaced by the model of 1917 Enfield Mauser hybrid rifle. The solution for this severe deficiency in small arms was needed, and it was actually thought that, hey, we've got a bunch of these shotguns in inventory, and it wouldn't be that difficult for Winchester to just start cranking these out in much significant numbers than they already were. Basically, where we can't get enough rifles, we might as well start issuing out shotguns in addition to the rifles. Indeed, from what I can tell from the research that I've done, this was the main reason as to why the United States even considered bringing a shotgun into the First World War. However, to General John J. Pershing, also known as Black Jack Pershing, the idea of a combat shotgun actually wasn't a bad one anyways, and of course the idea was thought up of, hey, double-aught buckshot out of a cone of fire, out of a shotgun in the thin trench walls of World War I, could actually be, well, useful. Of course, the Winchester 1897's use as the trench gun of the First World War is by far its most iconic role, and yes, was the reason why even I sought after one of these shotguns. Of course, this, though, is not an actual military configuration of these guns. They would have had the heat shield over the top and the bayonet mount on the underneath the barrel in front of the magazine tube. They all would have been fixed frame guns as well. There were no takedown model World War I 1897s, and sling loops added to the rear of the stock. Oh, I lost a shot. So for all that hullabaloo, how did the shotguns actually perform? Well, apparently decently well. Although these were definitely not the war-winning machines that everyone so certainly makes them out to be, that the United States managed to win World War I with this one weird trick. No, in fact, it's very rare that any single weapon has such an effect. However, in dry environments and in the right situations, these shotguns were liked. They were, the gun itself is sound. The gun is reliable, the gun is powerful. As a shotgun, there was nothing wrong with it. The two major contentions came with the ammunition and the tactics. First of all, ammunition. It is widely known that the Winchester 1897 was originally issued with paper cartridges that, of course, got soaking wet in the mud and rain environments of war. Fire your one round, and as soon as you try to cycle the action, all that wet paper would get gummed up inside your magazine tube, and God forbid, gum up your chamber and your action as well, and yeah, you're done basically at that point. Of course, there were brass cartridge casings that were developed for the shotguns, but according to Othais from Sea and Arsenal, they did not make it to the front lines until the very end of World War I and did not have any significant effect. But in dry environments where the shells were properly taken care of, they performed. Again, it's a shotgun. It performs exactly as you think it would. Leading into the second sort of deficiency of the gun was, of course, tactics. Of course, the whole idea of a trench shotgun was, well, it would be very, very effective in the close quarters of a trench, but I think a lot of people still forget that at some point you have to get to the trench. You're not just in a trench all the time. Well, actually, yes, you are. But to get to the enemy trench, you gotta get up and charge across 100 meters or more of open no man's land. And at that point, this is possibly not ideal. At least in no man's land, if you have a rifle, you can jump into a crater and peek up and take pot shots at guys on the other side. Or you can stay back in your own trench and take pot shots at guys on the other side to support advancing troops. But with this thing, you pretty much are lugging this thing all throughout no man's land, and you basically don't use it at all until you get close enough to. You know, with machine guns and rifles and mortars and artillery, getting across no man's land was already a task in and of itself. So the idea that, you know, during that entire charge, your weapon is basically not useful until you get to the enemy trench, I think there might be something to that. I felt one drop. Oh, that worked. Point being, these guns were thought to be useful, but in niche scenarios, which there's a time and a place for that. One place that our CN Arsenal Othias tends to cite a lot is that these shotguns were very well liked during night patrol. The idea that in the dark you can hear someone stomping around out there, or hear a twig snap, and you can shout out into the darkness, and if you don't get a reply back, or what reply you do get back is not in English, preferably German, you just start blasting in that direction with your slam fire, and boom, problem solved. Also, sort of rear echelon troops, or more specifically prison guards, were quite fond of these shotguns. Speaking of taking prisoners, there is of course a bit of a, people call it a controversy, but honestly it's more of just a propaganda attempt by the Germans. Quite famously, during the First World War, the German government issued an official complaint that the Winchester 1897 were inhumane weapons of war. If I'm not mistaken, the official claim from the Germans was that shotgun pellets out to longer distances are not lethal, and so those pellets can hit a person and get embedded in them and essentially cause unnecessary suffering. The German government issued an official statement that if they ever caught any American soldiers with shotguns, or even just carrying shotgun shells on their person, they would be executed on the spot. And any prisoners that had been taken with these weapons and shells would be executed. They would not be held at all. Of course, people commonly cite that, well, the Germans are big hypocrites for this because they had made use of serrated bayonets in the First World War, which those are pretty inhumane. Although, as far as I'm aware, the serrated bayonets were meant to be tools for the Germans that basically allowed them to cut twigs and branches, and getting through brush, dragging artillery through forests, you can cut all the twigs and saplings across the forest floor and make a way for your troops, making campfires, and again, of course, like what I've just sort of rambled, the whole thing was a propaganda attempt at a propaganda victory. They were simply just trying to get a dig in at the United States. Americans were barbarians, they did not fight proper war, and they were such poor shots they had to bring shotguns, and also the shotguns are inhumane and bad. Basically, more ways to make people at home and also on the German front lines basically say, damn, yeah, we are fighting the good fight. Those bad guys are the bad guys. We are not the bad guys. Of course not. Those guys are using shotguns and we're not. Of course, we are morally superior to them. Atrocities in Belgium aside. Well, the entire legal propaganda dispute was eventually settled by the United States basically replying, go fuck yourself. Basically, the official argument from the United States was, well, the spread of shotgun pellets is no different than the spread of shrapnel from artillery. And so the use of combat shotguns was perfectly within the rules of war. The United States also promptly responded with a statement saying that if any American shotgun prisoners were ever found to have been properly executed on the spot, as the Germans said they would do, the United States would retaliate by executing on the spot any Germans they found with serrated bayonets. As far as Othias from CN Arsenal has been able to tell, no actual executions took place on either side. So either the Germans genuinely were just bluffing, or the threat from the United States actually did work. Honestly, it's probably a little bit of both. So in general, the Winchester 1897 had a pretty sterling service in World War I. The guns themselves were perfectly sound. I mean, the design was well proven from 1897 all the way to 1917 and even beyond. I think if the shotgun was truly not a good gun, it first of all wouldn't have been adopted by the Army, and second of all wouldn't have had as long of a life as it did. However, of course, the conditions of the First World War made for some unique circumstances that a civilian sporting shotgun may not have been designed for. Indeed, many weapons probably were not designed for. Cough, cough. tanks, actually. I think I can personally attest to that. So of course there were going to be downsides, and no such weapon is ever going to be a proper wonder weapon that does everything that everyone wants it to do in an amazing new way. I don't think these things were particularly amazing or jaw-dropping during the First World War, but what can I say? Funny war crimes stick do go boom. So honestly, I think that just about wraps it up for the history of the Winchester Model 1897 and its use as a civilian, police, hunting, sports, military, combat, war, shotgun. Truly, this thing was long-lived and beloved. So let's talk a little bit more about my specific gun and why and how I actually decided to buy this damn thing.
Oh yeah. That'll make you feel like a man. All right, we're good.
So when talking about my specific Winchester 1897, it is obviously a standard civilian configuration, more or less. This one has the chopped down riot configuration barrel, so to speak. I did sort of originally dream of getting a military style, the heat shield and the bayonet mount and everything, but those things are just so dang expensive. I also considered the possibility of buying a shotgun like this, but then getting it converted. There are companies out there that will allow you to send in your Winchester 1897 bayonet mounts and reproduction heat shields and all that fun stuff. But then once I bought my shotgun, I just started feeling like I didn't want to modify it. I didn't want to do anything that couldn't be undone. And also I kind of didn't want to pay for it because this thing was already actually really expensive. I certainly could have gotten a modern shotgun for a lot less. Speaking of, that kind of ties into why I got this shotgun. I talked about it in my video when going over many of my other guns in my collection. Those of you who saw that video, you can probably notice that there are a lot more than I think my collection was at 5 when I made that video. Now it is at 8 that are here right now, but as of recording this, I have acquired a 9th gun. And it is hopefully going to be on its way here quite soon. I'm very excited for what it is. Spoiler, spoiler, so like and subscribe if you want to find out. But essentially, this was my second gun that I ever purchased, the second firearm that I've ever owned. In fact, let me get out my first one, because it is important to this story. Ah, my girl. My Lee Enfield number 4 Mark I. Not to make this a video about this gun, but this was indeed the first gun that I ever owned, first gun that I ever purchased. This was the start of my collection. So I had gotten the Lee Enfield number 4 Mark I as my first firearm, and I owned it for about, probably a year before I ever really considered getting a second one. For me, I bought this, it was cool, I got a rifle that I'd been wanting for a long time, not interested in getting any other guns. But then, the longer that I owned this rifle, the sort of intricacies of being a gun owner started to nag on me. The idea that I had this bolt-action rifle, but really couldn't do anything with it other than go shooting at the range and plinking targets for fun. Guns are more than that. They can be tools, and they can be defense weapons, and they can be, you can go skeet shooting with them, they can be sports, competition shooting, whatever. Something that maybe can be more practical. My Lee Enfield was not practical in any way, shape, or form. Its ammo was expensive, and it was heavy and long, and this was not really me deciding that I wanted to start collecting firearms and having a really, really big gun collection, but more of the fact that I have this, I want something a bit more practical to go with it. But me being me, when deciding, okay, I want a shotgun, I decided that I had to buy a cool old historical shotgun and figured how hard could one be to find and how expensive could they possibly be? They're shotguns. The whole point is that they're cheap and easy to find. And then I sat back and thought to myself, well, what are any old historical shotguns that I even know of or that anyone would even know? And the only one that I knew of at the time was the Winchester 1897. I think I literally Googled like old American shotgun or something like that. And this was, of course, the first result and looks so nice. With that exposed hammer, I love it so very much. So I knew this is what I had to get. After saving up some money, getting a couple paychecks, and stocking quite a few, I finally bought one on gunbroker.com. Yes, shit broker, I know. Mine is a civilian configuration gun that I suspect the barrel was chopped down on, I think, because it has a mark on it for full, meaning full choke, but this does not have a choke, I don't believe, based on looking through the barrel. The front sight bead looks, very well put on. Like it doesn't look like a botched job. It looks pretty dang original to me. This gun is very, very easy to clean and maintain because of its takedown feature. Introduced in 1898, so about a year after the original 1897s, the takedown feature of this gun basically means that you can split it in half. So you've got your magazine tube up top here with this little pin on the top. So you're gonna push that pin in and then use the pin to twist the magazine tube. And then you pull the magazine tube and the pump grip both kind of together out. And then from there, if you hold them, you can then just twist the gun and it comes apart. And that is so awesome. So incredibly useful. I can totally imagine that as a sports shooter back in the day, this would have been an incredibly useful feature. And in fact, even for me today, this is an incredibly useful feature. Pop that in there, pop that back, function check. Of course, obviously I've just got some gunk there on the top of my finger because you want to watch out for that bolt coming out the back. This is basically the one big thing that separates this from pump action shotguns of today, where the bolt flies out the back. Also, you get this like dropping ramp right here. Otherwise, it functions exactly like normal pump action shotgun. You pump it and you shoot it. There is no safety on this gun. Instead, you have your external hammer, so you can ride it to half cock. If you pull the trigger and then ride that hammer up, I always ride it all the way, and then I half cock it. On half cock, the action is completely locked up. The trigger is dead. The shotgun holds 5 shells in the tube and 1 in the chamber, so possible 6 in total. When I originally bought this shotgun, actually, I had quite a scare because the magazine tube had a big wooden plug dowel in it that restricted the magazine capacity to 2 shells plus 1 in the chamber, making 3 total. I did not know this at the time, but apparently this is a law when it comes to hunting with shotguns. But that does tell me that the previous owner of this gun probably used to use it for hunting.
Goodbye, target. Empty. Half cock, range is cold.
This was the first gun that I had ever bought over the internet and did not really know how all that was going to work. It was my first time having to submit a FFL for the gun to be shipped to, and then go to the FFL and have all my paperwork in order, do the transfer and pay the transfer fee and do everything that I needed to do to take it home. Nowadays, I'm quite used to that process, but this was the first time I had ever done it. And so as a result, I really had no idea what I was doing, and quite frankly, I panicked many times during the process, thinking that something was severely fucked up or the gun was lost in transit. Although, to be fair, I had reason to suspect so. So step 1 wasn't all that hard to figure out. Find a local gun shop, send their address and their contact information to the guy that you bought the gun from, and then they will talk to each other and figure out the transfer. You just sit back and watch. So I did that, I submitted it. About a day or 2 later, the guy came back and said, all right, cool thing, your shotgun's in shipment, thanks for buying, bye. And neglected to give me a tracking number. Now again, at this time, this was the first gun I had ever bought on the internet, so I didn't really know if that was supposed to be a thing they were going to do. Was my FFL gonna give me the tracking number? Were they supposed to give me the tracking number? Is there a tracking number for a firearm? Are they mailed differently than other things? I didn't know any of the process. I was so new to this. So I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I did a little bit more waiting. Overall, 3 weeks went by, and I didn't hear a peep from anyone. And at this point, I was starting to get worried. Once again, I figured, is there just a different mailing process for guns? Does it take longer than usual? I felt like, you know, I should be patient and I should wait. I didn't want to be that guy who was going to blow up the email of somebody who didn't deserve it because I didn't know what I was doing. But at the same time, 3 weeks is a fucking long time to wait for a gun, pardon my French, in my humble opinion. So at some point, I finally I drove all the way out to my local gun store, the FFL, that I had submitted, and asked them, do you have my transfer? Do you know what the hell's going on? They gave me the phone number of their local person who manages all their transfers. And of course, it was one person, and she was severely overworked. Sent her an email. She said, nope, I do not have your gun. Do you have a tracking number? And I said, no, I don't have a tracking number. So then I panicked, emailed the guy who I bought the gun from, and then no response. 3 days later, I get an email and the dude finally provides me with a tracking number. I look it up and the tracking number says the weapon had arrived. And so I email back and I say, hey, excuse me, I got the tracking number. It looks like you have it. Do you have it? Emails me back saying, no, we don't have it. At this point, I'm panicking because now I've waited 3 weeks. It says it's there, but they say it's not there. Something has gone wrong. A piece of history has been lost in transport, and it's my fault. If I hadn't been so stupid to buy this dumb gun, then it wouldn't have been lost in transport and some random crook wouldn't have a piece of history. I'm so dumb, what have I done? This is awful. Finally, she emails me back. It's a Thursday. She says, hey, actually your gun came in, we have it, you can come in and pick it up tomorrow. Fantastic. So tomorrow after work, I drive all the way out there, get there, ask the guy behind the counter. He says, sure thing, let me go in the back and find it for you. Goes in the back, 10, 15 minutes, comes back out and says, we don't have it. So at this point, I have been actively lied to. Needless to say, once again, I was panicking and at this point getting angry. Now, fear was turning into anger, into what the hell is wrong with you people? For whatever reason, if anyone makes the connections to what gun store I'm talking about and who I'm talking about, all my interactions with this gun store and these people have been amazing since. I think something was just in the air at that time, and for whatever reason, this was handled horribly. But ever since then, I've had great experiences with this particular gun store, and I have no qualms with them whatsoever. In fact, actually, I like them quite a lot. At this point, it's Friday, so I decide, okay, I'll come back again tomorrow and really see if you guys have it. I come back the next day, go there, and the gun store guy says, oh, hey, what do you know? We have it. Goes in the back, takes it out for me, puts it on the counter, takes it out of the box, and puts it in my hands, and exactly, I finally had it. All the wait was worth it. At this point, it has been a month since I spent the money on this thing, and after all the stress, all the anger of shipment and waiting, at this point, I finally have it in my hands. This is so amazing and perfect. I finally get to take it home. Nope. Because upon ringing me up and doing the background check, it turns out that the address that was on my driver's license was in fact not my current place of residence. Actually, I kind of already knew this, but I didn't know that this was going to be a red flag in their system. So they said, hey, you need to change your address with the DMV. Okay, fine. Next day was Sunday. DMV is not open on Sunday. Okay, fine. Monday rolls around. I go wait through the whole workday, decide I'm gonna go to the DMV after work. Work ends, I show up, turns out they close at 5 p.m., which is when I leave work. So, god damn it. Then Tuesday rolls around and I say, okay, you know what? I'm going to call them. I call the DMV, they say, you gotta go to the webpage. Okay, fine. Go to the webpage, try to log in, turns out I forgot my password. I need to reset my password, too late, they're closed. Have to wait till tomorrow. Wednesday comes around, I have to call them to reset my password to then log in and then change my address with DMV. Finally do that. That following Thursday, I finally go back to the gun shop with my changed address with the DMV. Hey, look, this is DMV website. My address has changed. Please let me buy the gun. Say, okay, sure thing. We're gonna run you up. They run my background check. That part of it clears. But then, right before everything's completed, I am put on a wait list because I'm under 21. And apparently, if you buy a firearm over the internet and you're under 21, you have to be put on a wait list. So I guess they do an even deeper background check on you. Honestly, I'm really not sure what it was, but I was put onto some kind of wait list. And to make matters worse, this was mid-February, so I would have been 21 in about a month. I was just underaged and put on this wait list. I'm pretty pissed off at this point. Thankfully, I don't blow up in front of the guy or anything or make any sort of scene at the gun store, but when I get home, I am absolutely fuming and basically fed up with the entire process and government as a whole. So I patiently wait through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I show up on Monday after work to go pick up the firearm. And of course, finally, pay the transfer fee, fill out the paperwork, finally got my shotgun. After a month and a week from actually purchasing it, dealing with pretty much every single piece of red tape roadblock that possibly could have been thrown at me, I was so excited. I think I literally pulled a Jesse Pinkman on the drive home, just screaming to myself, smacking the steering wheel, finally happy that it was all over. But despite how much of a nightmare getting a hold of this gun was, I do not have any qualms with actually owning it. This shotgun is an utter dream to shoot. It is so much fun to take to the range. I love introducing friends to this gun. All my friends love shooting this gun. It is 12 gauge out of a 20-inch barrel, so it kicks pretty hard and it is so much fun. It doesn't kick so hard that you can't handle it, but it kicks hard enough to wake you up in the morning.
I don't know. That is a lot of fun. It kicks really. There's a lot to it.
You were not kidding. That guy.
No, I was not.
Holy shit! God damn! That kicks like a bull.
A slide action is just generically the coolest thing ever to handle on the firing range or just alone in my own bedroom. There is literally nothing else quite like it. And this is just, of course, one of the coolest pump action guns of all time that you could possibly ask for. Now I have this, and I've been taking very good care of it. Like I said, the takedown function of the shotgun means that you can get through the barrel very easily to clean it out. Cleaning out the action is honestly not too bad. I've had 0 malfunctions with this gun.
Oh no. A double feed. Keep it recording. Get some nice shots of me loading it up too.
Brick reliable, as reliable as a brick house, if that's an expression that I can coin here today. Unfortunately, I have not had the chance to take this thing skeet shooting quite yet, but one of these days I would like to. So I think that's just about it for this video. This is my Winchester model of 1897 pump action shotgun. The history of the Winchester 1897, as discussed previously. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe. If you're finding this video and this channel for the very first time, my name is Ed320 and I traditionally do tank stuff. I don't intend on becoming a gun channel per se, but every time I get a cool and unique, new, interesting firearm, I will be making videos on it because I think firearms are cool and unique and also good analogs for general war history, tank history, and I think it's just all fun, cool stuff, and there's a lot of crossover. So hopefully if you enjoyed that, you can check out some of my other stuff and learn more about tanks with me. If you're a gun nut, I do recommend trying out tanks because I think they're cool. I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons and stream viewers who pretty much single-handedly funded through donations and again Patreon, funded, honestly, not only funded half of my firearm collection to begin with, but also helped raise funds for ammunition to take all these guns out shooting for the intros of this video and all the other videos that you guys will have on all these guns. If you'd like to support me through Patreon, you can do so. There's a link in the description. Link to join my Discord is also in the description. If you do become a patron, actually, by the way, you get a special channel in the Discord and you get all these videos early before everyone else and extended cuts. So you get to see more than what everyone else sees. And with that, I only have one last thing to shout out, which is Othaius from CN Arsenal. If any of what I have said today interested you at all, I highly recommend Othaius and May's videos on firearms in general, but if you'd like the Winchester history, then go check out basically the same video, but made by CN Arsenal and researched to an nth degree, more so than me. And these guys are infinitely more qualified to do it than I am, and just generally they are great. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Ed320, and this has been my gun collection, part 1. Thanks so much for watching, and bye-bye. Yeah!